I wanted to make a video today about more of like the details and like the day-to-day of what it means to run multiple businesses, to get them off the ground, to then manage them day to day, the team and multiple clients in now different industries. I thought that might be quite interesting, seeing as I kind of gave the overview of the Heaton Vences group and the various things we've got going on. So yeah, I thought it makes sense to go into a bit more detail and kind of bust a few myths as well about what it means to be a multiple business owner. The first thing I wanted to say right away is that the first thing people talk to me about or assume is that I'm super rich. I've got these multiple businesses in, financial services industry, marketing industry, so I must be raking it in. That's not the case, and people never understand that really. That when you're getting businesses off the ground, our longest running business, Heaton Vences, which is the first practice we set up, it's been going 5 years now, and we're only now at the point where we're like fully opened the gates and the team and the systems can handle kind of really as many clients as we could bring on in a single month within reason. So what happens is at that stage, sort of 5 years in, then you're like in a good position. You've kind of outlasted all of the barriers of like, most startups, like, half of startups fail within the first 1 to 2 years, and then another however many fail after 3 years or whatever it is. So we've gone past all of those. So we're now, I guess, an established business, scaling that up. But up until that point, and we're now going through this same phase with DAZE Accounting, which is the second accounting practice we set up, and then HV Creative, is that when you're creating these businesses and then building the systems and getting the team ready and putting everything into place, you're just reinvesting so much money back into the business. So, you could say our top company, Heaton Vences, that is essentially supporting the other businesses at the moment, reinvesting all of the surplus profits and surplus funds into those businesses so we can get them off the ground and eventually turn those into profitable companies that can grow and scale on their own with minimal impact from us. So yeah, but when various people ask me like how it's all going and it looks amazing and like you must be so proud. That's true. Like it is amazing, and I'm very proud of what we're doing. But I think a lot of people just assume that it's like some kind of dreamland where we create these businesses and then that's it. Like money's just rolling in and my bank balance is getting bigger and bigger. Not the case, because even as a business owner, you're putting a lot of personal money into the business as well. Granted, we're in a really good position now where we've got Heaton Vences and I'd say soon DAZE Accounting that will be able to do most of that reinvestment into the other businesses and other projects that we've got going on, and even reinvestment back into those businesses, because you always need to look at the systems and improve on the team and things like that. Marketing, branding. Yeah, and I mean, a difficult one day to day is just purely having eyes on everything. I wake up, get myself sorted in the morning, sit down at my desk, and it's like okay, what do I need to do today? What needs actioning? What fires do I need to put out? Constant problem solving. And it can get very stressful. And I think that's one thing I've learned is every day, to an extent, is going to be stressful, but it's only stressful if you have that mindset of, okay, I'm stressed about this, rather than now I'm a lot better at it, that, okay, these problems are always going to happen. I'm always gonna have this feeling of, I've got all these things to do, and you could get overwhelmed by it. But now I think I'm quite good at understanding that there's always going to be these problems and things that I know need to happen, but it's about prioritizing them and thinking, okay, I've got this thing going on in Heaton Vences, a couple of clients need these things doing. That's probably quite high priority versus HV Creative. We need to do a couple of bits there to improve the systems before we kind of open the gates for the clients. I know that's lower on the priority list. Rather than just thinking, okay, if I sit down and I've got 50 emails from the day before and I've got team messages coming in, that just look at it, it's very, very overwhelming. So it's about picking what to do first, what's going to make a difference, and then getting down to the lower priority tasks that do in the evenings or the weekends perhaps to make like the next week a bit easier. So that's a big thing I've learned. But yeah, going into a bit more detail about that, I will sit down on my desk. I've got our emails open, and we use a practice management software called Carbon, which shows it's got all of our emails in there, and it's got all of the tasks that the team are working on. Granted, that is only there for Heaton Vences and DAZE Accounting, because it's very much an accounting practice management tool. So that kind of solves that. I can see everything going on in the accounting world there with the team and the clients. And then HV Creative is a bit different because that's on Google in terms of emails and a lot of the systems. But the benefit is that we founded the business with a marketing expert, strategist, and he is taking the lead on it. And we're kind of more in the background offering our help in terms of business support and systems and anything like that. In terms of actually leading the business, that's very much Zubair, our co-founder. So that is a bit less of a sort of a daily concern. It's more of I'll wait for a message to come through from him, say, heads up guys, like we need this sorted before we can do this. So I'll just pop it on their task list. Okay, I'll either do that right now if he needs it, if it's like super important, or I'll get to it later so he can achieve what he needs to achieve. And then of course we've got the podcast. That's, again, we're getting it off the ground. We haven't actually released any episodes yet because we were kind of making time amongst everything else to book in episodes, which we're actually filming at the office there. Which, side note, I should probably do one of these videos at the office because it's a way better backdrop than my tiny office here, where I still need to paint that wall and put something on that wall, maybe like a cool print or something. But anyway, yeah. So with the podcast, Authentic Founders, it's just a case of making time, booking in an episode, getting our videographer, making sure he's available as well. And at the moment, we've just been doing episodes with myself and my co-founder, Emilio. So it's been quite easy because we'll just message each other and say, are you free now? Cool, yeah, we can book that in. Versus, I think the next couple of episodes, at least one of them is going to be a guest episode. So it's a bit more effort, message the guest, make sure they're available, which might not align with when the videographer is available or when we are. So it's like, just adds a bit more to it, but I think it's gonna be worthwhile. But yeah, like kind of that just like adds another layer into it. And of course, investing into it where we're not necessarily gonna see a return with the podcast for some time, because you've then got to build an audience and a community. And once they're there, then I don't know what that looks like. It could be sponsors, it could be that maybe they can subscribe to some exclusive content, whether it's specifically for the accounting industry or marketing or just business in general, because we do feel like we've got a lot of experience that we can share now. So yeah, that kind of just adds another layer into it, because from day one, when we just had Heaton Vences, we had so much time. Even when we were getting like a handful of clients, every single week, a month, we still just had so much time to kind of play around with the business, consider options, look at opportunities. And then you don't really notice it, but like gradually it gets to a point where I guess we've got a certain number of clients, we've got a handful of team members, and then all of a sudden you don't have that time anymore, because that free time is now spent managing the team or improving a system or helping some clients out with some other stuff, sort of like non-task related. And then you kind of move on to DAZE Accounting, and that sort of multiplies. You've then got more problems to solve, more team messages to deal with, because they're dealing with multiple clients. So you're kind of flicking between the two. And then, like I said, you bring in the marketing business into the mix. So you've got that sort of parked over there to deal with as well, or at least to have eyes on. And it's a weird one. You don't really notice these things. It wasn't like we didn't, wake up on a random Tuesday and go, right, now we need to do this because the business is like in the next phase. It doesn't happen. I think it just gradually evolves. And then I guess the good thing is that we do have these directors strategy meetings. So I mentioned, we had the one yesterday for HV Creative, but we also do that for HV Group as a whole. So we'll get together at the office and go through every business. Where's everything at? Do we need to action anything? Do we need to improve anything? What opportunities are out there? All of that. So that's quite a good grounding day. We just kind of sit down, talk it all out. Are we missing a trick? Does anything need sorting? So we usually come away from that thinking, cool, we're good. We're not missing out on anything. We're doing everything we can to push all the businesses in the right direction. Actually, just thinking, I could probably do a video of that day. Probably take you along to just hear a lot of what we talk about there. That might be quite useful, because it's the same as the HV Creative, the same sort of layout. I was talking about opportunities, the strategy of the business. Are we heading in the right direction? What's everyone's feelings? Because I think that's probably the biggest one on those days, is that it's a good opportunity, once a month, good opportunity to just check in with everyone and make sure that everyone is still wanting to be on the same path. We're all aligned in what we want to achieve, because otherwise, we're not just all doing this for ourselves. It's team effort. Everyone has to be on the same page. Otherwise, what's the point? And on that, I think a big part of the reason I've been able to manage dealing with multiple businesses is just the fact that I'm not doing it alone, the fact that I have co-founders, because it just helps so much. Even if it's like a quick message to someone just to say, hey, look, I'm struggling a bit with all of the tasks I've got going on, or whether it's just general life stuff, and people can jump in and say, cool, let me take this off your plate, and vice versa. I've had my co-founders message me and say, I'm struggling today, I've got all these things to do, can you help me out? And I'm like, yeah, cool, let's do it. And I think that's one thing where if, we've all got loads of things on every single day, but if somebody comes to me and says that, to be honest, any of the team, if they say I've got all these things to do and I'm struggling, can you help? That's the one thing I'll immediately jump on. It's I'll immediately bump it to the top of my list, because I know how it feels to be I guess overwhelmed. So it's there's always so much to do. That's been a big part of it. I talk about changing my mindset about having these task lists or tasks on my list, and getting to a point where I can look at it all and feel relatively calm in that, okay, I know what needs to be actioned first, what needs to be actioned least, what's going to make a difference and what can wait. But I don't think I would have been able to get to that point without having that, I guess, safety net that I know the team is there, and my co-founders particularly, to deal with kind of the more strategic, high-level stuff. And I think another big thing for me was when I first started Heaton Vences. Whilst I had a lot of, free time, that like wasn't just dedicated on client work, that time was like just all in on pushing the business forward, looking at systems, looking at tech, looking at the marketing and branding. Like I had no time, no like mental capacity to think about anything else, meaning I like pretty much wasn't doing anything like socially. Like I like barely was seeing friends. Like there's like tons of like events at the weekend, like friends planning stuff. I had to turn a lot of that down to say like I couldn't. I'm busy. I don't even think at the time that I said like, oh, I'm like working, because I knew maybe some people wouldn't get it or think like I'm choosing that over them, which like I suppose is the case, but it's different. It's not. It wasn't like I would prefer to do that over seeing them. It's just that like I knew this was the moment. Like I had to put in that time early on. I was in my mid-20s at that time. I knew I needed to put that time in then to then reap the rewards now, and that's exactly what's happened, and I'm very grateful for that. So I'm actually now at a point where even with these multiple businesses, and arguably like even more of my time is spent in the business, because early on we worked so hard on the systems and the team and automating as much as possible, processes, all of that. Now I have my weekends back and a lot of my evenings back, because things are just happening in the background. I know that if something comes in, the team are dealing with it, which actually I haven't really stopped to think about that until I'm saying it now. But it's actually like in a really good place. Like I say, even with multiple businesses, I've actually got more of my time back for other stuff. Time to make these videos, for example, which I wouldn't have been able to do before, or I felt like super guilty about doing it and taking time away from the business.